Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Citizen weekly video update. My name is Glenn Stanton. I'm the Director of Family Formation Studies here at Focus on the Family and a sometimes contributor to Daily Citizen. I am standing in for the great Michael McGonigal, who is on vacation this week. So we're going to take a look at what we have at Daily Citizen this week. But before I do, I want to make mention about some big news this week. Of course, we just finished the Democratic Convention. Next week, the Republicans are up. And just as the conventions themselves have been handled in a very different way in this age of COVID, how we're handling them is different. And it's interesting that already we've heard very interesting and good, helpful comments from all of you, our readers. And the feedback is interesting. I mean, some of you questions about how we're covering things, thinking that we've been a little too soft on the Democrats at their convention, some a little bit too hard. We feel like if that's where we are in the balance, then we're hitting it well. We're going to be doing the same thing with the Republicans. But I want to take this opportunity to point out that who we are at Focus on the Family as a 501c3 organization, we are not a political organization. We cannot endorse candidates. We will not endorse candidates. We're about issues. We're about marriage. We're about life. We're about religious liberty, about the family. Those are the issues that we will be covering, that we will be digging into and helping you get the information and the insight that you need to make the voting decisions that you need. So yes, we are not political. We have to be very careful about what we can and can't do in terms of mentioning candidates, but we can tell you about what they believe, where they stand on these issues that are absolutely critical. And that's what we'll be doing this week and over next week with the Republicans. So with that, let's go around the table, hear from the team what they're each writing about. Brittany, let's start with you first. What do you have?
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. At the Democratic National Convention earlier this week, the one group you didn't hear from is Democrats for Life. This is a group of Democrats who are actually really passionate about the sanctity of life and want their party to adopt a broader and more inclusive perspective on the issue of abortion. They even sent out a letter with several prominent Democrats signing, including Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards, stating that they're concerned that the party's pro-abortion stance is actually decreasing the number of votes that they might be getting. A group of Democrats for Life even actually went to Milwaukee, where the convention was supposed to be held, even though it's all digital now, to protest and just let their voices be heard. Unfortunately, the news story on Twitter actually got blocked with a sensitive content warning, even though there was nothing like that in the video at all. And so it seems like there is some bias at play, even in the big media and within the Democratic Party itself.
Brittany, thanks for that story. Hearing from pro-life Democrats, especially around convention time, remembering that they do exist, that's such an incredible story. So thank you for that. Bruce, what do you have?
Well, Glenn, this week I'm following a story from Louisville, Kentucky, about a wedding photographer who owns her own studio there. She's a Christian, and she wants to photograph weddings between one man and one woman. However, she's afraid a local law there is going to force her to become guilty of discriminating against same-sex couples if she was ever asked to do one of those. She took the bull by the horn, so to speak, and brought a lawsuit with our friends at Alliance Defending Freedom representing her, and won a major victory this week in federal district court, where a judge ruled in her favor and vindicated her religious freedom rights. And he said this, I quote, "America is wide enough for those who applaud same-sex marriage and those who refuse to," unquote. That's the type of forward thinking that we need in our judges. And we're really glad to see this decision, and we hope we'll see more of these in the future.
Thank you, Bruce. Those stories of religious freedom and protection of individuals being able to hang on to their own personal religious and ideological convictions is significant. So thank you for chasing that one. Jeff, how about you? What do you have?
Thanks, Glenn. This week I'm reporting on a survey that was done in 6 different countries around the globe. It asked people, what do you think about COVID? And asked different questions about the disease. One of the questions they asked was, how many people in your country have died from the disease? And across the board, from Japan to Germany to here in the US, people overestimated the amount of deaths from the disease. Here in the US, the average answer was 9%, which would mean 29 million people dead from COVID. The real number this week, even a couple of weeks after the survey, is about 173,000. So that brings up an important question. Where are people getting these inflated ideas about how serious this virus is? Well, Peter J. Leithart is a writer who writes over at First Things, and one of the things he said is that some of this comes from the media. Obviously, they're not clearly explaining what the data means. They tend to sensationalize and they tend to overfocus on negative things. Another possibility he gives is that maybe some of us weren't paying attention in math class in high school, or maybe we just don't know how many people live in the US. Either way, those high numbers help feed the fear and anxiety over this disease, which is killing people, but definitely not at the rates people think.
Jeff, thank you for that story. I mean, those numbers are very concerning. Thanks for following that. Zach, what do you have?
Thanks, Glenn. This week, I wrote about a new study from the Media Research Center which found concerning new evidence of media bias. Their study analyzed from June 1st through July 31st the big 3 evening news outlets of ABC, NBC, and CBS. And they found that the coverage of the presidential candidates with these 3 outlets, they gave President Trump 150 times more negative news coverage than they did Joe Biden. And the author of this study, his name is Rich Noyes, and he wrote that this study finds that their coverage of the candidates, he says that's not news reporting, that's a negative advertising campaign in action. Now, it seems like the American people are onto this kind of bias in the media because a recent Gallup poll found that 73% of Americans believe that media bias is a real problem. So honestly, I think this is just one more reason for you to read the Daily Citizen.
Zach, thank you for that. I mean, the way many different media outlets are handling these very important stories with particular spins is very evident, and you bringing better insight to that is very helpful, so thank you. And viewers, thank you so much for tuning in this week and learning more about what is happening with the team here at Daily Citizen, and we will see you next week with more news behind the news.